As long as, James Bovard, and I don't know how he writes so much, but as long as Bovard is out there writing his books, as long as Reason Magazine is out there and has one subscriber, as long as at least we make sure that this is the Bill of Rights and not this one, there is hope. But man, is it going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of our resources. But there's no alternative. If we leave it up to the traditional parties, if we leave it up to the traditional branches of government, they will fail us. And if they fail us, then as Reagan said back in, I think it was 1964, we are the last best hope of mankind, and that will have been extinguished within 2 generations. And I simply will not allow that to happen in whatever small ways I can to help, and I know all of us here won't either. So really appreciate the Foundation for doing this work, this yeoman's work, and please continue to work with them, participate with them, and other organizations as well. The stakes could not be higher. Thank you. And I guess, do we have, Jacob, a little time for some Q&A?
Thank you. I was thrilled to see that you have joined. I don't know what exactly your capacity is as an advisor to Marijuana Policy Project, but I was wondering, too, that it seemed like many conservative Republicans who always talk about invasion of privacy and the Bill of Rights somehow have blinders on when it comes to the drug war. And I was under the impression that you yourself at one time was a very big advocate of the drug war. And my question is, well, I also wanted to make one more point too. What could be more of a pillar of freedom than the privacy of one's own body and not to have it controlled by the government? But if that's correct, that you have been converted to this cause lately, I was just wondering if you could share with us what were your reasons for changing sides?
Largely the same thought process that went into formally joining the Libertarian Party late last year. It's sort of, you watch, particularly since 9/11, with the tremendous acceleration of the growth of government. We certainly have seen it grow for many, many years, but the tremendous acceleration of that growth, and government power cannot expand except by reducing individual freedom. So as we've seen since 9/11, this tremendous acceleration, or I have seen this tremendous acceleration in the growth of government power and the corresponding tremendous shrinkage in personal liberty, individual freedom. It reaches really a critical mass in my mind. And I simply came to the conclusion in a number of areas, working with, on the drug issue, for example, working formally with the Libertarian Party, which I had had great regard for many years. Even when they worked to defeat me in 2002, I still had a tremendous regard for them because they were alone among American political movements, among American political parties, the only one that retained as its core the edict of maximizing individual freedom and minimizing government power. But I came to the conclusion that I really needed to go back and look at the whole array of areas in which maybe in earlier times one could sort of forgive or take a more benign benign neglect, so to speak, of certain areas where the government was active and say, well, we can afford that, to let the government involve itself here, even though we may not really like it, because we have a lot of freedom in these other areas that we need to work on. It's gotten to the point, I firmly believe, where certainly I don't think I can any longer afford to turn a blind eye to any area in which government is taking away our freedom. And that includes, very frankly, simply going back and rethinking and relooking at a number of areas that in the past might have made a lot of sense, or as I say, I was willing to let government get away with because we still had enough freedom, so that there was a comfort level in working in these other areas. Since 9/11, and with the tremendous growth of government power, we can't afford that, and that's the conclusion I came to. Thank you.
Mr. Barr, as a former congressman, I'm curious about your opinion on a particular technology issue. Given the ubiquity of personal data assistants and cell phones, is it time to free the congressional page to go back to their parents?
Time to do what?
Free the congressional page to send them back home to their parents.
I'm not page?
The congressional page. The teenagers who assist congressmen.
Oh. If they're working for the right congressman, I want them to stay. You know, I want Ron Paul's pages to stay there because they're learning something about how government really ought to operate. I think it's a good program. The problem is the quality of the members, not the quality of the interns and the pages. That's what we need to focus on. We need to send a lot of them home, not the pages.
Congressman, I'm an old-school North Carolina conservative. I grew up supporting Sam Ervin and Jesse Helms, giving me perhaps the kind of political schizophrenia that you may have felt yourself subject to from time to time. But you were a hero to me in the 1990s when you led the drive to impeach President Clinton, not because of his sexual escapades, but because of his abuse of his power as a president, which he used to try to cover up his sexual escapades. And you're even greater hero to me when in 2002 you reminded people that we needed to fear the abuse of George W. Bush, and for that your enemies drove you out of office. But I was proud of you, and you were my hero.
You're very kind, thank you. Overly kind.
By
the way, Bruce Fine, and Bruce Fine hasn't spoken here. He's not scheduled, is he? But Bruce Fine, who's one of, I think, along with James Bovard, one of America's finest constitutional writers, he wrote a very good opinion piece just recently. I forget exactly when, but just recently I remember reading it, that had to do with his position on impeaching the Attorney General. That is a very, very good piece of work.
And my question to you is a question of the political realm. I wouldn't declare myself a libertarian, but I came here today because I read the American Conservative, and I agree with 90% of what I heard spoken today. But I recognize there's certain elements of libertarianism that the American public is not close to being able to sign up to. And so I'm looking as a practical reality in next year's elections. I don't know if there's any way to turn around the Republican Party in this year. They are elephants, they're stubborn, they're not people who turn on a dime. They're like moving the Titanic. But you've chosen to leave the Republican Party to go into the Libertarian Party. Is there encouragement you could give for any of us who either have roots in the Democratic or Republican parties to work within those parties to try to achieve some greater awareness to push forward candidates who will protect civil liberties, just as Sam Ervin did, just in his party, just as you did in your party, because you say the courts and the Congress may not be ready to do it, only the people may be ready to do it, but unless the people can express themselves through the members of Congress and the members of courts, then we're just kind of whistling in the wind.
I think I am very, very optimistic and very enthused by the current leadership of the Libertarian Party. They have a number of young folks. By that I mean a lot younger than I am. Shane Corey, for example, the executive director of the Libertarian Party, he's a young man, got a lot of energy, a lot of political sense about him. He's worked in Washington. He was with Judicial Watch for a number of years, I think. There are a lot of other people in the Libertarian Party that are coming up, that are now in leadership positions or who shortly will be, that I think have a very solid sense of not losing our foundation, the party's foundation and its core beliefs, its core principles, but understanding that there are certain things that you can emphasize, certain ways that you present those ideas that give them tremendously improved currency in the political arena out there. I mean, we talked for a moment ago about the drug issues. If in fact you simply, and this is just my view, I don't speak for the Libertarian Party here, that if we simply go out and we talk about the drug issue as an issue of freedom and loosening or doing away with all or at least some federal drug laws, we're never going to break through to enough people who care much more about other issues such as fundamental tax reform, such